Markets are a bit wild this morning with the Dow down a lot, but the rest of the markets either up or flat. Tesla flat. A lot of news, a tremendous amount of news, but the markets seem to be maybe waiting for tomorrow's jobs report. But why is the Dow down so heavily? That's a good question. We'll try to tackle some of that as we go through this morning. But we'll start with a wild rumor. And so take this with a complete pound of salt. This could be just made up of whole cloth by somebody who doesn't have a clue what they're talking about. Sorry, Mr. King or somebody named King of KSM underscore capital. That's how they just their handle is on X. Rumor has it that McDonald's has pre-ordered 100,000 Tesla Optimus, he says Optimus, I say Optimi, to work across many of their locations, and that's to start in 2026. He says, big if true. Of course, I believe it's true because that's who I am. I mentioned last night, Jeff Lutz and I talked about this, that I thought that In-N-Out would be the ones that would do this. And who knows, maybe In-N-Out is also, but this is an obvious direction for Optimus to take. Yes, it works in factories. It'll be a great addition to factories, but where is the real problem right now? It's in fast food chains. Can't find employees, can't keep employees. The employees are not very good. And moreover, they're too expensive. So I think this could very likely be true, but if not true, should be true. All right, let's go on. This is from Teslarati. Tesla analyst Gene Munster from Deepwater Asset Management named three headwinds that might affect the company's return to growth. He says on Wednesday, October, it's talked about the sales numbers yesterday. Tesla, sorry, I should have chopped this. I should have edited. He sees this as a return to growth for the companies as deliveries were up by 7% year over year. He says, I was expecting a slight miss, predicting deliveries would be up only 4%. This is positive. It marks a return to growth after being down 5% in June and 9% in March, wrote Munster. Munster outlined the three headwinds. He refers to the macro viewpoint of Tesla as the auto industry grows to embrace electrical vehicles and the company's market share lessens, particularly in the United States. Munster theorizes that Tesla's U.S. sales for September lagged compared to the rest of the world and were up low single digits for the quarter. On the upside, he believes Tesla lost a fraction of its EV market share in the third quarter, adding that the company's rate of decline is probably less than most investors expect. See, he's talking about in the EV market. He's talking about market share in the EV market. And when you've got this much market share, of course, as more competitors come in, your market share is going to go down. It's irrelevant. I keep saying this. It's the share that matters is the share against all automobiles. By 2030, I believe Tesla's U.S. market share will be about 40% compared to about 50% today. Deepwater analyzed EV subsidies in Europe, looking at the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Norway, which account for 20% of total EV sales. The firm saw a decline of 35% in EV subsidies. When it excluded the UK, which is no longer part of the EU, the decrease was 24%. So this is where one of the big problems, this is where we're really seeing some of the numbers come down. He says, Munster also pointed out that Elon Musk's political commentary has increased over the past few months. It might be a headwind to sales. Given that consumers are hypersensitive about politics and more than half of Tesla buyers lean politically left, yeah, that makes sense. This dynamic may have reduced deliveries by 5 to 10,000 during the quarter. Suggests U.S. numbers could have been 4% higher and overall numbers just under 2% higher, if not for the political dynamic. Maybe, maybe not. We saw what happened with Taylor Swift. She lost 2 million followers because of her recent statements. All right. So, anything's possible. This is from Reuters. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a longer article, but I think there's some very good tidbits in here and some thoughts about how this is going to impact in the future. It's not impacting the stock this morning, apparently, although who knows, maybe it would be up more but for this article. But it says here the headline is a self-driving Tesla carrying a passenger for Uber rammed an SUV in an intersection in suburban Las Vegas back in April. Reuters. Why are you talking about this now? This is an accident that sparked new concerns that the growing stable of self-driving robotaxis is exploiting a regulatory gray area. Do-it-yourself versions of course, the Tesla vehicles, where people, drivers in Uber and Lyft are using Tesla vehicles and using their full self-driving. We know that that's taking place. And he says, while test versions of self-driving cabs from robotaxi operators such as Waymo are taking place, they're heavily regulated by state and federal authorities. But I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe this is not that good an article. I read it this morning. I read it. I thought carefully. Okay, here's where I think it gets good. The other driver in the April 10 Las Vegas accident who was taken to the hospital was faulted for failing to yield the right of way. So this brings up the one issue, which is, yeah, there's going to be accidents that are caused by the other driver. They're just going to run into Teslas, but that's still going to be reported as somehow, it makes headlines. Yoon was the driver, and he has a YouTube video channel called Project Robotaxi. He was in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel when it entered the intersection. He says the Tesla on FSD navigated the vehicle at 46 miles per hour, did not initially register a sports utility vehicle crossing the road in front of Yoon. At the last moment, Yoon took control and turned the car into a deflected hit. He says it's not perfect. It'll make mistakes. It'll probably continue to make mistakes. His passengers suffered minor injuries. Yoon discussed using FSD with Reuters before he publicly posted the video. Tesla did not, ride-hailing company Uber responded to questions about FSD by saying drivers are responsible for their safety. So this is interesting that they made a comment. They said it was in touch with the driver and the passenger. Drivers said that they noted that drivers are expected to maintain an environment that makes riders feel safe, even if driving practices don't violate the law. Uber also cited instructions by Tesla, which alert drivers who use FSD to have their hands. This is previously got no nag now. So other people were contacted, other drivers. One driver, the rideshare guy who also puts stuff up on YouTube, says, I do use it, but I'm not completely comfortable with it, said 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥, a ride-hail driver. He's the rideshare guy. He avoids using FSD while carrying passengers. Based on his conversations with fellow drivers on the channel, however, he estimates about 30 to 40% of Tesla ride-hail drivers across the US use FSD regularly. So that's interesting. That's what he estimates. Rideshare services allow for the use of these partially automated systems in commercial settings, and that is something that should be facing significant scrutiny, according to Guidehouse Insights analyst Jake Foose, or Foose, I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, so this, what's going to happen with regulations, we don't know. That's part of all the things that are coming up next week. So how will all of these things impact what's going to happen on 10/10? It says, while almost all major automakers have a version of partially automated technology, most are limited in their capabilities. On the other hand, Tesla says FSD helps the vehicle drive itself almost anywhere with active driver supervision, but minimal intervention. He says, I'm glad that Tesla's doing it and able to put it off, said David Kidd, a senior research scientist at the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. But from a safety standpoint, it raises a lot of hairs. Any federal regulatory oversight would require a formal investigation into all of these things, not just FSD, said Missy Cummings, director of the George Mason University Autonomy and Robotics Center. So you can't just pick on Tesla, according to her. Kaz Barnes, who's made more than 2,000 trips using FSD with his passengers, said if Uber and Lyft were smart, they'd get ahead of it. And she thinks they should ban it. That's okay. Yan would just kind of take off the training wheels. I hope to be able to do that with this car one day. I'm not sure that they got this right. How does she say they're going to ban it? And then say that she thinks they should just go ahead and use it anyway. All right. So investing.com has this morning. Truist analysts raised their price target for hold rated Tesla So right now it's on not on a buy or a sell, it's on a hold, but they raised their price target to 236. Well, that's pretty good. They were at 215, so at least it's a $21 raise, but of course the price target is lower than the current price point. It would appear that Tesla, Okay, this is Randy Kirk. I'm sorry, that was a little bit messy this morning, wasn't it? But I thought that some of those points in that article were important, but I'll do more editing the next time I have an article like that before we get to it. All right, this is so hit like if you liked it anyway, even as I should have edited more. Hit subscribe if you haven't done that already, and I don't know why not. And then notify, because we got a lineup coming. We've got Cern Basher this morning. We've got, of course, as always, Bradford Ferguson tonight. Tomorrow, we've got AJ at noon, okay, talking about his earnings estimates. That is going to be a first and be super interesting, I think. And then over the weekend, we got the regular report that we do after Cathie Woods does her report with Larry Goldberg on Saturday morning, and of course Larry tomorrow night. So many things, and there's more. I can't even go into all of them because this would take too long. All right, in the week ending September 28th, the advanced figure for seasonally adjusted initial claims for unemployment insurance was 225,000, which was an increase from the previous revised level last week. The 4-week moving average was 224,000, very close to this week's average, a decrease of 750. The total number of continuing weeks claimed was 1,651,000. That was a decrease. So the continuing claims were decreasing. Reuters says that it was expected was 220, so slightly higher than the expected amount. Now, Boeing, of course, has announced some temporary layoffs because of their strike, and you also are going to see additional layoffs downstream from Boeing suppliers who are not going to be, getting work from Boeing right now. So you're going to be seeing that. Now, the dock in that, so you're probably starting to see a little bit of that come into the system. Then the dock strike, which just started, eventually that is going to have a big impact. There will definitely be layoffs from upstream and downstream for the dock strike. In other words, people not getting deliveries of things that they need in order to keep their employees busy, as well as employers not being able to ship merchandise overseas. Therefore, they're not going to be able to employ people for a while. They'll have to do layoffs. All right. This is also breaking news. Economic activity in the services sector expanded for the third consecutive month of September, according to the nation's purchasing and supply executives in the latest report on business. The services PMI registered in at 54.9, which is the highest reading since February 2023, indicates sector expansion for the 49th time in 52 months. So why is the Dow down? Well, the Dow might be down because they're thinking that this interferes with their hopes for additional cuts from the Fed. I think the Fed cuts are in. They would have to have something would really have to go crazy for the Fed not to do the next two 25s. The report was issued today by Steve Miller, chairman of the Institute for Supply Management. He says in September, the services PMI registers 54.9, 3.4 percentage points higher than the August figure, really a big jump. The reading in September marked the 7th time the composite index has been in expansion territory this year. The business activity index registers 59.9% in September, 6.6 percentage higher than the 53 reported in August. Huge, indicating a third month of expansion after contracting in June. The new orders expanded to 59.4 in September. That's 6.4 percentage higher. The unemployment index contracted for the first time in 3 months. So the employment went down as orders went up. The price index registers 59.4% increase. The price index. This is not prices going up. It's just the prices index, as they ask a bunch of questions, was also up a 2.1 percentage point increase from the 57.3% the previous month. All right, so this could be impacting markets this morning. Maybe the Dow is nervous about this information. I will tell you that last time I checked, the bonds are up substantially. So maybe that's what's going on here is about this PMI. All right. Let's see. Let's look at the bonds now. I'm sorry, let's not start with the bonds. Let's go over and look at the stocks first. So Tesla has, which had been flat, is now down 2.96. I don't think it's the Reuters article or that article that we talked about that accident in Las Vegas, after all, because it's really just following the market. It is exactly following what's taking place. If you look, all the rest of the Magnificent Seven are on a downward slope right now. NVIDIA, which had been up substantially, still up 3.58, which is a good move, but it is going straight down. Now, maybe this is all about that services PMI, which came out at just 25 minutes ago. So we might be seeing some reaction to that, a little bit too strong for the market this morning. Could be. Construction numbers also were supposed to come in. I couldn't find them anywhere, not on the construction page, not in any articles. So I don't know if the construction numbers came out, which might also be impacting this. Let me know in the comments below. All right, so right now we got the Tesla down 2.97. You got the Dow down 209, NASDAQ down 3320, S&P down 1450, and the Magnificent Seven mixed with Meta barely up and NVIDIA still strongly up, as mentioned before. You've got the Cathie Woods all down basically at this point. Also, again, following the market, had been up. Almost everything except for the Dow was up or close to up at some point, including Tesla. So this is very much a macro move, in my opinion. Let's look at the percentages. Dow down 0.48, NASDAQ down 0.18, S&P down 0.27, and Tesla down 1%. All right, now we'll go in and take a look at those bonds, which were problematic earlier. Well, at least if you don't want them to go, if you agree with me and you think that the bonds would be better off if they would stay lower, they are up strongly this morning, 4 basis points on the 10-year, up to 3.825. 3.75 is my target. 3.825 is well above that. You've got the 2-year also up 4.6. You have got the 2-month flat this morning. So down a little bit actually at 0.4% down, and the 3-month also only down up 0.7%. So those would be going in the right direction, at least with regard to the inversion that we've talked about for so long. All right. What about oil? Oil up $3.11 this morning to 73.21, $2.95 for Brent at 76.85, and the difference is over $3, but not much over $3. So that Mideast escalation is what it's all about right now. But the escalation, okay, the only escalation that I saw this morning was that Hezbollah, the actual Lebanese troops fired on Israel this morning. But it was a fairly minor skirmish, I think. I'm not sure that it suggests that Lebanon is interested in getting involved in the war, other than maybe they felt that they were under threat. Natural gas, but oil obviously thinks that there's a problem. Natural gas up 2.91% at 2.968, getting very close to $3. You've got gold down down 70 cents. So call it flat at 2,669. In fact, right now is switched to unchanged. And silver also barely changed, up 0.25. And copper down 1.89. So that is interesting to see that commodity actually down today. Japanese yen, the dollar's up against the yen a bit, 0.2, and down against the euro, down 0.17. So similarly up and down against those two. You've got the Bitcoin, just call it unchanged, down 50 at 60,207, very close to going into the 50s. All right. So what does it all mean? Who knows what it all means this morning? We know that markets opened up this morning and now have gone down, continuing down. The NASDAQ even stronger down.
Tesla, $3.46. So that's down $3.46. So yeah, right now, at least all the markets have trended down. And I'm going to say that the PMI was the reason, the PMI on services. The services, of course, have stayed strong over this whole time. Manufacturing, of course, has been weak. And the market is looking for the overall business trend to be at least neutral to down. They don't want it to go into recession. They want it to be a Goldilocks. But of course, Goldilocks is always really hard to achieve. All right. So what do we got for you? I just mentioned all the things that are coming up. I'm not going to go through them again. But the most important would be Cern Basher coming up here in a couple of hours. So be sure to tune in for that. And then if you wouldn't mind hitting the Patreon thing, if you're not a member of Patreon yet, if you're not supporting the channel, this would be a good time to do that. Go down, hit that, and that would be much appreciated. It has been great talking to you.